Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I am, of course, here on a stakeout watching a pot shop. I have just filmed my review for the film Us, and because I have filmed this review, I did not want to put out spoilers, because, look, people put out spoilers in their reviews. Some people choose to put out spoilers in the reviews, and spoiler reviews should really be separate, because if you want to see the movie, you're going to watch a review, and then if you want to talk about the movie, so this is my spoiler, I am talking about the movie. Of course, this is the new Jordan Peele film in theaters, Us, and the premise is that a woman goes out there and she has a family, she goes on vacation, and she is met by the doppelganger of herself and her family, and mayhem ensues, okay? So this is what we're dealing with. And throughout the time there, we learn that the people beneath the others, the doppelgangers, in the film they are also referred to as shadows. They mimic us, okay? They survive by eating raw rabbit. And apparently they were an experiment by the government to control the population that was at some point abandoned. Okay? One of the problems with this is we're dealing with modern day. If we had the ability to perfectly clone people, we'd be doing it. And the government would not be doing it to control people. They would probably be doing it to make thousands of soldiers that it doesn't matter if they die because they don't have a family. Okay? So this is one of the things that really disembowels the story, is that, the whole purpose of these other us's existing, is so improbable because of the reasoning behind it. Now, I could point out here, and I must point out here, that exactly why they exist is never actually revealed in the movie. It is speculated by one of the characters, who is or may not be a shadow, and is also driven insane, that this was the government experiment designed to control the population. That is not a fact of the film. That is a statement of a character. These are two different things. Now, again, the idea that they are feeding off the rabbits that inhabit their underworld brings out the question, so what are the rabbits eating? Because the rabbits have to be eating something in order for them to be screwing. Okay? And if they spend all of their time mimicking us, how are they catching rabbits? This is another question. It is shown in the film that at one point they have a certain level of will of their own and a certain lack of will of their own because they are mimicking their counterparts above, but they are able to get clothing, at least that looks sort of like ours, and they are not able to communicate despite having our experiences. So this brings about the question as to why is that happening? Because, here is the thing. If this were an abandoned experiment, why are there younger doppelgangers? When was the experiment abandoned? And how is it that these clones, because you can't just do that. If I had a twin, and that twin and I both married two identical copies of the same woman, we would not have the same children. They would not be born at the same time. Something else has to be at work here. So there's one thing. Again, this is the improbability of the film, that it's just like, okay, well, that doesn't work. It's something that could be called lazy writing, or maybe it's just that's not what's really happening, and we have to wait for a sequel. is employed here. So that is a big problem with the film Us, is that you've just got this highly improbable environment. I mean, let's be honest here. If there was a doppelganger of myself that grew up eating nothing but rabbit, that person would certainly not be as large as I am. They would be very physically different from all of the things that has happened to them. And then there's the other wrench in the works, that at least one of these people speaks English. And this is, of course, the doppelganger of the main character. Or it's also possible in the story, although not explicitly required to be the truth, that what happened was that the doppelganger grabbed the real one and locked her down there, and so she was able to speak, which begs the question: one, why didn't she teach everyone else to speak, because she could speak? And two, why did she stay down there? Why didn't she just leave once she got out of whatever it was, that she was locked up in? So that's kind of the big question that comes out. Is like, okay, so, why didn't... Because apparently nothing's stopping these people from leaving. They're not locked in. They didn't have to break through something to get... There's just, if you walk through a certain hallway, you get out, which makes this dumb. So there's again that. So it's like, why didn't they learn to speak? And then kind of the biggest, WTF of this film is, so why do they need to be violent? And you could say, well, look, they were driven mad, and that's why they need to be violent. But again, if there were this many people, you're talking about hundreds, thousands, millions of people. It would take a ridiculously vast infrastructure to support them. So, they would have, at a certain point, developed their own language, become fully sentient, have a society. The facility you're talking about would have to be so incredibly large, even if it were just one. Let's just say even, there's maybe 500,000 of these people. Okay. So 500,000 people show up out of, have just, not one of them has wandered out in all this time, and then they have to come out and be violent. It's too improbable. It doesn't work. Building this thing would take so much money. And I grant our government is dumb and does a lot of things that are so expensive. But it's just, wow, the amount of resources that would go into this would be so expensive. And how would you keep it a secret? Because you would need thousands upon thousands of laborers. Okay. That's another major hole in the plot, is why do they need to be violent? Why couldn't they just show up and say, hello, we're here, we're human, we don't like living underground and eating rabbits all day. We'd like to take our place in society. Okay. Then the final big question here, this is one-on-one, okay, I get you. But we got these things called policemen. Okay? And we also have these... if a guy showed up at my house who looked like me and brandished a pair of scissors, I would get out my pepper spray, and I would get out my baton, possibly my grandfather's meat hook. If somebody threatened me, I can find a lot better weapons in my house despite not having firearms. So the likelihood of these people winning the fight, even as ambushers, is pretty small. And then once the word gets out, police would just be showing up there and, oh, there's a person in red. pop, pop, they're dead. So, yeah, there wouldn't, at the end of this movie, there's a bunch of people holding hands in something of a silent protest, but in reality, what you would have would be a pile of bodies wearing red. There would be police officers, the National Guard would be called in, unless this were happening literally everywhere across the country, in which case, still the National Guard is attacked by a similar body, and that similar body has scissors, whereas the National Guard has guns. It's a pretty easy fight at that point. So again, what would have been the more interesting movie is the chick down there going out there and trying to organize these people to rise and claim their humanity. So again, there are a lot of messages in this film. I know I'm missing something. I'm not exactly the brightest dude on earth. So yeah, you tell me. What's the deal with, what am I not seeing that is so great about this film? Because, again, great, good movie. Not the greatest film I've ever seen. I do recommend it, but there are just a lot of holes in the plot. And, well, anyway. That's my opinion. Love to hear yours. Comments below. I'm Richard.
Greetings, humans. Randall the Rat here, reminding you that Richard, the guy that owns this channel, well, he's gonna pay to have a pound of trash removed from the ocean for every 1,000 subscribers he gets in 2019. So if you would be a good human and like and maybe subscribe and comment on this video, that would be much appreciated, because I cannot feed off humanity's dead corpse if all the humans are dead. There have to be enough humans to keep making humans for me to keep feeding off of, or I have a limited food supply. So, don't destroy the environment, don't wipe yourselves out, like and comment on this video. Right? Randall the Rat, out.